So with God's help, this is Baruch Fleischman here at the Tikkun Elevator Kollel, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today a shtickle Zohar on the first day of the week, the day of Chesed. It's in Parshas Behar. Now this parsha happens to be my bar mitzvah parsha. I was born in Behar. Sometimes goes along with Gosai. But Behar is really a vision of what the land could be, what it'd be like to live in a land that observes Shemitah, etc. So let's see how the Zohar starts, and let's see what it's going to say. The Zohar says, "V'yidaber Hashem Moshe b'Har Sinai." Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai. Daber el b'nei Yisrael, this is a quote, speak to the Jewish people. V'amarta aleichem, and say to them, Ki sibou la'aretz, when you come to the land. Rebbe Elazar pasuk. Now Rebbe Elazar wants to come and explain this, and he begins to say like this: Zos teres ha'oila, hi ha'oila. So this is the way it goes on. This is the Torah of the burnt offering. It's the burnt offering that burns all night. Mukdal v'Behar. Hai kra b'Knesset Yisrael okimna. So this pasuk has been explained that it refers to Malchus. Malchus is another word for Knesset Yisrael. The Hisalko mischavecha b'Malka Kidusha, because she goes up, she rises up, and joins herself together with the Malka Kidusha b'Zivug Shalim, with an eternal yichud. That is the idea. So going on, He ha'ola al mokta al mizbeach kol halayla. This is the burnt offering that is burning on the altar, kol halayla, the whole night long, and that's the quote. Tal chazi, the Zohar says, kevid the al lel yel b'sarin steaming. So once night falls, and now it's dark, and the gates of heaven, so to speak, are closed. Dinin tatayim misarim ba'alma, then lower dinim become aroused in the world. Va'azlim b'shatim, and they go and they fly over chamari b'asanech b'kalbe. So he says into relationship to donkeys, female donkeys, and dogs. Chamari hokibna. Now the concept of chamari is also the word chamor, which is really chumra, or physicality. It's that concept. I know a little bit about that from, just looking other places. Chamari harukimna v'kalbe v'sane. So he said, what about dogs and what about female donkeys? So he says, here we are. Shanta v'lo azlan, they do fly around, lo shatan, they do not fly around, v'lo azlan. So there is some kind of spirit that is associated with the chamor, with the ason, and with the dog, the caliph. But what happens with them? They stay here on the earth, those spirits, and witches use them, the B'nai Nosha. They become harshaya, tools of witchcraft for the lower worlds. Kagon Bilam, Vokmohu. So like Bilam, we talked about him and his relationship with his donkey. Kadin Kol B'nai Alma Naimim. And this is a time when everybody else is sleeping. But we still have the concept that the outside Mizbeach, the altar, is still lit. Now, how that goes together, not sure. When night splits and midnight comes, he says there is an awakening of a wind from the north. Now, it's hard to say what ruach means because it has many different understanding. And the Pashtanim always want to think of it in terms of either one or two words. Either it's a wind or it's a spirit. But whatever it is, there's something in the north that starts to come into the world at that time. So from this mizbeach that's down below comes out a fire of it's a flame of fire. The siren is pesacho, and it causes the gates of heaven, which were closed, to open. The dinin taton is kanasha benugvechum, and the lower dinim that had been tormenting, in the first part of the night, he says they go back into their hole. Is kanasha benugvaihu, into their holes. And then that fire, that flame from this fire, it goes on and permeates and flies through the world. Vatarin the Gan Eden is Pesalchu, and as a result of them, the gates of Gan Eden are open. Ad Demati Hakul Shalchuva, until the arrival of this flame. V'ispalag the Kamis Sitrin the Alman, and it spreads into all different kinds of sides of the world. V'ahol the Choz Gadfur the Tarnagol the Ari. So he says, and it winds up going underneath the wings of the rooster, Vakare, and then calls out. Kaden, so then the Zohar goes on. Now we're on page Tov Reish Nun Zayin. So he said, Kaden Kudsha Barichu Ish Takach Bebein Tzedikayim. That's where you find the Kodesh Baruch Hu be in the midst of the tzeddikim. Ukanes Yisrael Meshavachas Lay, and the Kaneshes Yisrael, which is Malchus. Malchus comes and brings tremendous praises to the Kudsha Barichu, which is their Anpin, who ad the Asi Safra, and this continues on until the morning. Came to the Asi Safra, so once the morning came, Ishtakachu Mishta'akin Baral Zachad, we find them that they are dwelling together in the secret of oneness. There is a law, Naicha, she, as a result of this oneness, and we have to understand that the Nukva, the Malchus, is empty, and feels that emptiness all the time. And now that she's dwelling and living with Zer Anpin, Isla Naicha, now she's comforted Babaila because she has her husband with her. This is the meaning, what is written. Al Mukta al Mizbeach called a Lila, that it was a flame that was burning on the Mizbeach the whole night long. Ad Boker, and it continues to burn, etc., until it continues to burn, until morning comes. The Habasapra, because in the morning, Dinin, the dinim, the punishments, the criticism, the accusations, the Shalhovin Ishtakachu, and all of the fire that they breathe, I meant to say breed. Ishtakachu are quieted. Because then it's our Abraham Ba'alma. And that is the moment when Abraham Avinu is awakened in the world of V'naichuchu Dekula. And it's a comfort for the whole world. Now, let's look at the Matak Midrash. Now, what you have to realize is what we were just reading are the words of Rebbe Shem and Bar Yochai. So it's not so easy to understand. Sometimes it is. Sometimes you can kind of put it together. But we have something really wonderful that came out, I don't know, 20 years ago, 15 years ago? The Matak Midrash. The Matak Midrash is a running commentary. He translates words and he brings you the Ari. It's really, I love the Ari. And so here we go. We're going to take a look at the Matak Midrash. Now we'll try to reach read as much of the light print as possible, but sometimes we have to bring in the Zohar itself. It said, "Vayedaber Hashem and Moshe b'Har Sinai." Lamar Hashem spoke to Moshe at Har Sinai, and then he said, "Daber b'nei Yisrael v'amarto v'lechem ki savo al haaretz," when you come into the land. Now the Matuk says, "Asher ani noisin lechem." This is the rest of the pasuk that I give to you. "V'shabbos haaretz Shabbos laHashem," and the land will come to bring a Shabbos that is a rest for Hashem. Meaning here he was talking about Shemitah, and then we went into Yovel and different things, but all the Shemitah and the Yovel and so on and so forth are combinations of the number 7. 7 goes with Malchus. Aretz goes with Malchus. Kedei the Farish Pasuk Zeh. So in order to explain this Pasuk, Rebbe Elazar began to speak. Hiktim the Farish Masha Kasev, and now he wants to explain this pasuk. He says, Zoz Teres Ha'oila, this is the Torah of the burnt offering. Hi'ola al Muktach Mizbeach, so this is the burnt offering that goes on the flame of the altar. Hai Kra B'Knesset Yisrael Lokimna. So the Matak writes, Mikra Zeh Bi'arnu al Knesset Yisrael. So we've said that this pasuk about the Mizbeach, about what's burning on the Mizbeach and the carbon ola, this is really the concept of Malchus. Knesset Yisrael, another word for Malchus, Shehiyah Malchus. Di Salka Mizchavrecha B'Malka Kidusha B'Zivuga Shalim. Because she goes up, joins together with the king, which we're saying is Zer Anpin, B'Zivuga Shalim, with a complete oneness. Shehi Ola Mizchaveres B'Melech HaKadosh B'Yichud Shalim. So she goes up, joins together with the holy king in a complete oneness. So So he says, understand, this takes place after midnight, or at midnight forward. So he says, Sha'az yesh yichud Yaakov Aleah. So we're learning about this, if those who are zocheh to hear the shiurim on Birchas Kohanim. He says that there's after midnight, a yichud takes place between Yaakov and Leah, bifnei Zer Anpin, in the front of Zer Anpin, Behem Shavim Bekumasam, and at that moment, because yichud only takes place when Yaakov and Rachel are the same height, because normally Rachel is lower, because Orech Kumas Zer Anpin, and they both are all the way up to the top of Zer Anpin. So then he goes on and he quotes the pasuk again. Kia ola al mukta al mizbeach kol halayla. So once again, this is the fire offering, burning on the mizbeach all night long. And then the matuk adds ad boker. Now there's a little more depth to this, as we're going to see. So this says ba'u reg. So come and see. Kevish shenektas alayla b'leil chachol. So we're talking about the weekdays here. Of Shari Heicholos Gadoshim Shalgan Eden Elyon Nistame ben Nizgarim. So when light falls during the weekday, we see that the gates of the palaces, the hallways of Kidusha, Gan Eden Elyon, that it means it usually refers to the Osidavo, which is Bina. Nistatma ben Nizgarim, they're closed up, they're sealed away. Aval Yakanes Laval Yakanes Zar L'Sochem. And the reason why is that no one who's not fit should go in. So he says, Oz dinim hatachtoinim shal chitzonim. So then the chitzonim is the concept of constant accusation and criticism, telling you about all the bad things that you are. At this time, the accusation that the tachtonim shal chitzonim yesh bechem sharak misoranim ba'olim, they have only one reason there, because they are aroused in the world. The Oslim b'shatim, and then they go, and they float. V'yesh bechem sheholchim b'shaytim b'olim, they fly around the world. So he's v'chem hakitzainim anikroim chamorim v'chasonos v'kolovim. So he says these particular kitzainim, let's say they call it bad spirits. I'm not sure what we would call them. I think spirits makes it sound too, it confines it too much. The chitzonim are all the things that I said. He said they are also called specifically at this time. There were 3 different types of chitzonias, which are klipos, which is the donkeys, the female donkeys, and the dogs. Shemis oralim b'techilas alayla. All of these, the dogs bark at the beginning of the night. That's what he wants to say. He says, and the others, they're friends. And he explains. So klipas achamor. So what's the secret of the klipa that's associated with the donkey? So this is the concept of the breath of tuma, that starts out at the beginning of the night. He said nobody could see you anymore. And ultimately what it does, it hurts people. And on these, the rabbis say, in the first watch of the night, which means the time between midnight and dusk. So Rishon Chamor Noer, that's when the donkey brays. Hainu so the Sarah Chamorim, this is the secret of the 10 donkeys, the Eser Asonos, and the 10 female donkeys, Shoshalach Yosef La'avid, that Yosef sent to his father. L'chachnia Osam. And why did he send them to his father? In order to humble them down. Now you understand that Yosef is in Mitzrayim and Yaakov is in Eretz Yisrael. So he sent them physical donkeys. What donkey? Were they physical donkeys or were they spiritual donkeys? So what the Matak Medar B'Devash is saying is that he actually sent these agents, the Chamor, the Ason, and the Caliph. He sent the spirit of them to Yaakov Avinu. So in order to be able to live in order to get control of them, to subjugate them. So the Yud Sphira Shel Zun the Klipa, this is the secret of the 10 spheros of the Zohar V'Nuk of Klipa. So if you have a Zohar V'Nuk and Kidusha, you have the same thing, a reflection of it which is false. A false reflection of it, which is the Klipa. V'kalva, so it said, v'klipos hakalovim. Let's talk about the klipa that goes with the dog. He says, v'asonos, and the female dog. Which that's what we said. He says they don't start flying around, and they don't travel through the world. Elohim is ordan the vad, but the reason why they are aroused, the seif koach el hamachshefim ha'osim kishu b'techilas alayim, to those wizards that use these klipos at the beginning of the night. So he said, Kamo Bilam. Let's remember Bilam. And when it's time for him to put the donkey away, and that is in the barn, whatever, Shahoya metama atzma, because he was making himself tama to use that tuma, ba'asono, with his donkey, va'yedeza asa pa'ulas hachshafim. And through this, he's able to use that tuma for the purpose of witchcraft. Cursing, that's what he wanted to do. That's the best thing that witches do. So this is what the Chaverim have explained. We've learned it a little bit before. So at the beginning of the night, the whole world is sleeping. And they can taste the taste of death. But do you understand that the altar in the holy temple, Shehu so the Malchus, which is Malchus of Kidusha, Sheba ne'achazim achitzonim, and the chitzonim want to grab a hold of this. Boer, it's on fire. Basoref, and it burns. Midin agavura, it burns up from the din of the gavura kadei lahashpia as koyach adin lachitzonim, in order to be able to once again to grow the at this time of night as it's burning, it grows. I really was translating it wrong. I thought it was going to go a different way. So let me start again. He says at this time that we're talking about the early part of the night, the Mizbeach, he used the Mizbeach Tatal, the Levar Itoke. So the outside Mizbeach is burning. The Mizbeach Achitzam, Shebechutz, that's the one that's on the outside. Shehu Sod HaMalchus Shebora Ne'achazim Achitzaynim. So this is the concept of the Malchus, and it's surrounded by Kitzaynim. Boyer v'soraf b'dein ha'gevura, it starts to burn, it flames, shoots out fire of the power of the din of Gevura, in order to be able to pour out the koach hadin, the chitzaynim. That's the first part of the night. So he's saying, I think, that the mizbeach hachitzayin, this mizbeach in the early part of the night, the fire that's on it actually goes to the other side. B'falgul's leil yasayir ruach, but he says at the middle of the night, midnight, there is an awakening of the ruach tzafon. B'chatzas alayla b'sorah ruach tzafon. V'hu sod his orah shel chamesh gevuros te'ima, and this is the secret of the arousal of the 5 gevuros of Ima. Hamisareres, that is aroused, the hamshech, the malchus, in order to bring this to malchus. We understand that Ima is in a state above and beyond the chitzonim. Kedei lahachnia es haklipos, and the purpose of her bringing these 5 gevuros to the nukva, is that she should have the power to be able to subjugate these klipos. And from this lower mizbeach that we're talking about, which is the secret of malchus, Yotza shal chavas eish, now comes out another fire. Are the fire changes? I know its qualities. Shehi sod chamesh gevuras should be yisoda, which are 5 gevuras that are in now the yisod of malchus. Sha'olas besod mayim nukvin is their anpin, and now they're going to go upward, just like the fire down below. All of these gevuros which we're talking about. Now we're in the second half of the night, and in that second half of the night, the nature of the fire produces gevuros and Kidusha. And then v'shari ha'checholos al yonim shal rachamim niftachim, all of the gates of above are opened up. V'ayedei zera b'dinim atachtonim shal chitzonim, and then the dinim that the chitzonim are trying to do, misasvin b'nikveihem, they go back and gather together in their holes, which is also called a nekev, which is the opening shalatahom rabbah, of the deep depth. They go back to their hiding places. V'shalcheves azu holechad b'shotetis, and now this shalcheves, which is the shalcheves of Kidusha, it goes and it continues on and flows through the world. So he says this concept of them moving is the concept of going from the bottom to the top. That these gevuros are needy and they need Zer Anpin to come and sweeten them. And this is going all the way up in form of Mayim Nukvin. V'shari Gan Eden Iftachim, and it causes this prayer from the bottom to the top, causes the gates of the Gan Eden to open, so that their beloved one should come, the Gano, to his garden. That is, the Kodesh Baruch Hu should come now into Malchus and rejoice and party with the tzaddikim in the Kidusha. Ad mati hakul shal chuva, ad she'osa shal chevesh so the chamesh gevuros the Malchus, until the time comes that these 5 gevuros, which are the yesod of Malchus, megas the malach Gavriel hanikra tarnagol, they finally reach an angel, the malach called Gavriel. Meschalekes the kametzadadim sheba'olim, and Gavriel takes and parts all of these different gevuros into many different sides of the world, all over the world. Kolom shenechlechas lahasarim v'chamamonim alatarnagolim atachtainim. He means to say specifically the Malchus, the Matuk B'Devash says it is talking about that Gavriel parts these out to other malachim which are lower, that ultimately brings to them to every rooster in the world. The ora osam, the crow kadarkam, to call them, to arouse them that they should start crowing. K'dei la'ora v'lahaketz as b'nei adam v'shinasim, in order to wake people up from their sleep. V'niknas tachas kanfei hatarnagol b'kol, so they go underneath the wings of the rooster and they call out. So the Zohar says, we'll try to get through this now, it's going a little long. Az Kodesh Baruch Hu nimsa bein tzaddikim, then you find that Kodesh Baruch Hu is in the midst of the tzaddikim. And he rejoices with them. He mixes with them and enjoys them in Gan Eden. Kolomer Yaakov mishtasheya b'torasim b'sod liyisman. So what it is that Yaakov Avinu, who represents Zer Anpin, is the male aspect called Kidusha Baruch Hu in this case. He comes and he joins together with the Torah, the tzaddikim b'sod liyisman, and he brings it upward to the Most High. V'niknasis Yisrael shehi so the Malchus. So the Knesset Yisrael and the Malchus, the Knesset, so the congregation of the Jews we call Malchus. Meshaveches al Kodesh Baruch Hu, comes and praises the Kodesh Baruch Hu, who's Zer Anpin, ad sheba haboker, until the morning comes. So this love match between Zer Anpin, Zohar v'Nuka, she needs him and he's coming, and he comes and he brings her what she needs. But when the morning comes, so they're what's the right word that lovers say to each other? They're speaking sweetnesses to each other. But who's so? This is the secret of this quote from the rabbis. He says, Mishmar Shalishis Isha Mesaperes in Bailo. So the last Mishmar of the night, that is the watch of the night, this is a time when the woman is speaking to her husband. So Yichud Yaakov V'Leah, this is the secret of Yaakov V'Leah, Sheyesh Be'ilas HaShachar, which takes place at that moment when the morning star comes out. V'yesh lo menucha im baila b'sod Yichud, and now she's resting with her husband and she's comforted. One last little bit. Zezechu shekasav, and this is the meaning what is written. Shekol halayla ki yokedet v'sarefes b'dinim shelo. He said the whole night long. He says she is kindled, she is burning v'sarefes, and burns b'dinim shelo, but with her bin dinim. Kolomar ad chatzos halayla. So this he bringing to a little conclusion here. Until midnight, he shall let this mitzad dinim hakitzainim shebo. So he's saying Malchus is very much exposed to the outside world. This is her situation. She protects Zer Anpin. She makes a home for Zer Anpin. She is the Kosed Bracha of Zer Anpin. But at the same time, her backside, she is exposed. She's exposed to the Chitzoni. So here in the first part of the night, the Dinim Chitzonim Shabbat, those are in the fire. But then after the midnight, so now already is in control. the dinim that are normally part of the Kidusha of her. Ki beboker hadinim v'shalchuvish eish nishkatim. Because the dinim which are so punishing, when the morning comes and the light appears, if it's shalchuvish eish nishkatim, so all of those flames quiet down. And what happens is now the midah called Chesed comes with the morning light, Shal Avraham, Ba'olam Hamamtik as called Hadinim. So this is, let me read it again, the Chesed Shal Avraham Avinu, Ba'olam, that comes into the world at this moment, Hamamtik as called Hadinim, which has the power to sweeten all of the dinim. He said, V'yesh nachas l'kol b'necha oilam, and then it brings comfort to the whole world. Because of this thread of Chesed, hamispashet ba'olam, that spreads into the world. This is Baruch Fleischman for the Tikkun Elevator Kollel. This is the first day of the week of Parshas Behar.